So the PS4 Pro is finally released. That makes it the first generational half-step console that we've really, seen before. This is the first time we're getting a console upgrade that's actually a more powerful system that can run games better and things like that. It's pretty neat actually, and a lot of people are really happy with it. But of course, like with any new piece of tech, there are complaints. There are going to be growing pains as well as new developers are adapting to the new console. And I thought today we would kind of talk about some of the things people are complaining about and seeing what Sony and Microsoft both can learn from these. Sony in order to get patches out and convey a more cohesive message, and Microsoft of course to capitalize upon this with their Scorpio, providing these options to players with their generational half-step console when it comes out next year. So one of the main things I'm seeing, and I'm actually agreeing with this as well, is the, I guess you could say, lack of frame rate options. I know that there are a couple games in the list. I know Tomb Raider is one of them. I can't speak for any of them off the top of my head, but I know that Tomb Raider does offer a mode where instead of increasing any kind of graphical setting, it would instead use the double power of the PS4 Pro to render the game in 60 FPS, which is fantastic. Honestly, for those of us still on 1080p monitors and who really can't get the benefit out of 4K, having an option to instead use that extra power for frame rates is a very good thing, especially for those games that are 30 FPS like Skyrim or other things like that. Having that option to instead of running the game in 4K or a checkerboard or increase the textures or whatever, instead of having that, have an option to increase the frame rate, that would be wonderful, and that goes across any game here. Another complaint that I'm seeing as well is the lack of cohesion between titles. Whereas some games like Tomb Raider offer various amounts of rendering modes, things like 4K or 1080p with insane ultra textures and things like that, or of course the 60 FPS mode at 1080p as well. Other games are just slight increases, just replacing some textures and then rendering the game at 4K, and then others are even smaller than that, just providing HDR and lighting upgrades, things like that. Like I can't speak for each game individually, but just from what people are saying, since I have not yet to use, not yet got to use my PS4 Pro for many games outside of Skyrim and the Call of Duties, some people are saying it's a very, very small increase that is really not worth the asking price. If they were to provide a stronger message about what is done, in each game title, as well as provide more options for gamers as to what they want to see increased, kind of like a PC, that would be a much better option. I know console people are against anything, remotely like a PC, but with these generational half-step consoles, you basically are getting a PC experience with optional hardware upgrades. And so being able to choose where that extra power went to would be a great thing. And I think as far as Scorpio is concerned, as long as we're talking on the topic of, what Microsoft can learn from this, if they, that they do have a stronger system, so that's already going to benefit them. But if they give, gamers more options or provide, a more cohesive message as far as what's being increased from title to title, that will definitely very much so impact, it will help them as far as, having the Scorpio sell well and have the general reception be good. Another thing I see is just the lack of supported titles. Some games on the list are things that people either aren't going to play, like some indie games or some VR games, which I know that the PS4 Pro was also made primarily to help better support VR. I'm alright with that, but a lot of people are disappointed that they're not seeing more conventional titles on the list. So there's things like Knack, one of the worst exclusive titles I've ever seen in my life. It was also supported. I think the only reason they did that is because Mark Cerny made that game, and so it's like, his, game. He also was the lead designer on the PS4 Pro, so, kind of, keep him happy, I guess. But, there's, other than that, the rest of the games are pretty much whatever. The Call of Duties are on the list, Battlefield's on the list. I'd say Battlefield's probably the one that's going to benefit the most, because that game runs at 900p on the original PS4, so having the upgrade to 1080p 60 FPS with a more solid frame rate on the PS4 Pro version is definitely already going to benefit those who don't even have a 4K monitor. So I would say out of all these games, Battlefield and Rise of the Tomb Raider are going to be the ones you're going to benefit from the most, because Rise of the Tomb Raider is going to run the game at double the resolution, double the frame rate, mind you, if you turn that option on. And then, of course, Battlefield is going to both get a performance and a graphical update to whatever your monitor is, and then a more stable frame rate from what we're seeing as well. But, of course, if there were more games on the list from launch, it would definitely make a lot more people happy. So, again, tying this into Scorpio, just make more games available at launch and keep supporting it throughout the year with not only just your first-party games, but also third-party games as well. We do see more games coming on the list of the PS4 supported games at a later date. You know, we have Final Fantasy, Watch Dogs 2, things like that. They're all coming later on the system. But of course, at launch is what a lot of people are looking at, and at launch the titles are pretty barren. So that's really the majority of the complaints overall. I mean, you know, there's not a whole ton of complaints. It's a pretty straightforward system. You know, you're just getting better graphical capabilities, and it's a new system, a bit more powerful, things like that. So from initial impressions here, I mean, it's exactly what I was expecting. I know a lot of people are disappointed in the games library and lack of options, but it's pretty cool. And I mean, the game looks good in 4K. That's all I'll say. I mean, I know it's not all the games are official native 4K, but I mean, Call of Duty's look nice and Skyrim looks nice. So that's all I really cared about. I knew what I was getting into when I purchased it. So let me know what you guys think about the PS4 Pro or the Scorpio, mind you, if that's more your thing. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next one. Again, stay classy. And honestly, just as a little end note here, I definitely think it's worth the price. $400 is not that much. It's basically the price of the launch PS4. And when you compare that with the standard or the slim model, still selling at $300, that extra $100 more than makes up for the power increase. But again, let me know what you guys think. I swear I'll stop saying that so many times, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay classy. Bye-bye.